Hi there, and welcome to This Day in History for February 20th. February 20th is the 51st day of the year in the Gregorian calendar, with 314 days remaining to the end of the year, 315 in leap years. Today's word is culmination. Culmination is a noun that means the action of culminating, so let's look at culminate. Culminate is a verb that means to reach a highest point or altitude, to be directly overhead, to rise to or form a summit, to reach a highest or climactic decisive point, as in the contract culminated weeks of negotiations, or the senior class culminated the school year with a trip to New York. To bring to a head or to the highest point. For stargazers, when a heavenly body culminates, it reaches its highest point above the horizon, as we might see it from Earth. If culminate is a verb that means to reach the highest climatic or decisive point, then culmination is that point reached. The word culminate comes from a Latin word that meant crown, indicating a top. Over the centuries, a meaning of culminate or culmination has evolved to include simply meaning to reach the end of something, as in a written sentence culminating in a period. First known use of the noun form culmination is in the 1630s, and the verb form culminate is in the 1640s. Culmination. The word culmination came up last week in our discussion of Mardi Gras, describing Mardi Gras as the culmination of the carnival season. Remember, if you have a word you'd like us to examine in this Word of the Day segment, drop it in the comments. We'll take a look at it. And with that, back in the early days of what would eventually become the United States, mail delivery could be a pretty iffy proposition. This was well before telephones or even telegrams, so communication over any distance at all needed to be physically delivered as by mail. Unfortunately, mail delivery tended to be more local and differed from place to place. If you had some important information to relay to someone in another state or even another country, the only way to get it to them, short of personally going there yourself, was to send a letter. And it might be a gamble as to whether or not they would receive it. Same thing in the other direction. Your friend or relative in another state wants to keep you updated on the news from home, so they write you a letter. You might or might not get that letter in a timely manner, if at all. This is an example of the sort of situation that the publisher of the Pennsylvania Chronicle found himself in back in the 1760s. They found that the Postal Service at the time couldn't be relied upon to deliver his paper to readers. In addition, the paper also relied on being able to receive news to print, and unfortunately, for whatever reason, the Postal Service of the day was simply insufficient to their needs. In an effort to try to set this situation aright, a piece of United States federal legislation known as the Postal Service Act was signed into law by President George Washington on February 20th, 1792, establishing the United States Post Office Department. This act was critical in laying the foundation for the national postal system, creating a more organized and effective means of communication across the vast distances of the young nation. This is the birthday of Karl Hans Albrecht, born February 20th, 1920. He was a German businessman who co-founded the discount supermarket chain Aldi with his brother Theo. The brothers split the company in 1960 into Aldi Nord and Aldi Süd and introduced the name Aldi in their branding in 1962. The name Aldi, by the way, is a syllabic abbreviation for Albrecht Discount. Interestingly, Aldi Nord owns the Trader Joe's grocery chain, and Aldi Süd is in the process of buying 400 Winn-Dixie and Harvey's supermarkets in the U.S. Karl Albrecht was a very private man, so we don't know a lot about his personal life, but he was a billionaire and was listed as one of the richest people in the world and was listed as the richest person in Germany when he died in 2014 at the age of 94. Karl Albrecht. This is the birthday of John Warren Giles Jr., born February 20th, 1946. Better known simply as J. Giles, he was the leader of the J. Giles Band. Whenever I hear that name, I always think of their 1980s songs Love Stinks, Freeze Frame, and Centerfold. We'll talk about one of those in a few minutes. J. Giles passed away of natural causes in 2017 at the age of 71. On February 20th, 1962, John Glenn became the first American to orbit Earth. There had been other men in space before, Gagarin and Titov for the Russians, and Alan Shepard and Gus Grissom for the Americans, but those were just out and back runs. We needed a multi-orbit flight to get ahead of the Russians, and John Glenn fulfilled that order very nicely, lifting off from Cape Canaveral on February 20th, 1962. He made 3 orbits of Mother Earth and was in space for almost 5 hours, something like 4 hours and 55 minutes. I'm sure it was exhilarating, but there were also some uncomfortable and scary parts. But he did get back okay and lived to tell about it. Now, in case you'd like to see about some other things that I talked about before in regards to February 20th, I'll leave a link for you. Love Stinks was released as a single from their album of the same name in April of 1980. Written by J. Giles band members Peter Wolf and Seth Justman, this song relays in a quirky, entertaining way a tale of frustrated romance leading to the opinion that love stinks. This version by J. Giles Band peaked at number 38 on the charts and has been covered by Joan Jett for a movie soundtrack and by Adam Sandler in the movie The Wedding Singer. Love Stinks by the J. Giles Band. Link in the description. Alrighty, thank you so much for watching. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. Feel free to share this video with a link in your email, messaging, or social media. If you enjoy this series, you can check out the playlist that contains these videos. I'll put a link to that in the description. That description lives on YouTube, so for other platforms, I'll include a link to my blog page that's called No Really. You can also find me on Rumble, BitChute, and Odyssey. All those links in that description. Alrighty, that's all I can think of right now. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time. This is the birthday.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
I wasn't talking to you. Me and my mouth. John, are you kidding me? Okay, hold on. We got to make that be quiet. You got to read the black part. Hi there, and welcome to This Day in History for... Oh, where's your microphone? Okay, we don't want to say the same thing twice. Oh, get your microphone. What is it with you and this microphone? Okay, here we go. Okay, we are still recording. That's great. Okay. How about that? We'll have a lot to edit today. Cacophony is a sound. Cacophony is a noun that you got to read it the right way. Let's start over. It's 8 o'clock, so all of the reminders are going to be dinging. I forgot to turn those off. Okay, stop it. It's 8 o'clock. Don't alienate people who can be helpful to you. Flinging happiness all over the place. Alrighty, back to work. I think we got it this time.